Now that you've found UBN Radio and discovered our quality talk shows, it's time to spread the word to friends, family, and the universe. 24 hours of music and talk. Radio without limits. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's ubnradio.com.
Yay. Welcome back to the Larry Excelsior Show. Oh, man, I'm so glad to be here today. Boy, we got someone that's going to be touching up on my favorite subject today. I'm telling you. And now, so you guys know I will mess up a name, but I actually think I got this name pretty good. So for the sake of this environmental conversation, I'm not even going to talk about politics. I'm sick of politics. We'll get on to politics next week. All politics will be included in this conversation. So I'm not going to bother by bringing it in at the top. I'm going to bring this young man in right away. In fact, Carolyn, thank you for being here.
I'm happy to be here.
Well,
today.
you know, you're getting to the point. I'm jealous. You've been doing such a good job with the show, and here it is. I'm getting to the point. I need you like a security blanket here now. I can't do this without you. I can't do it. But
well,
thank you so much.
I have to up my rates.
Yeah. Really, thank you for bringing it, because you know I'm really into this environmental thing. So introduce the guest for you, because you know how to introduce this young man.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm just so delighted and impressed with the Earth Doctor, Reese Halter. I really met him only this year when I attended a program with the Parliament for World Religions, and it was held at Loyola University. Just about, well, I guess it was last year, and we were in touch with each other. So the time has gone by so quickly. But I heard a presentation from him that I said everyone needs to hear. And we've been in touch for the last few months to make sure that he came and shared it with the community that I'm a part of, as well as our listening audience. And I'm going to share a little bit about his background. Earth Dr. Reese Halter is the recipient of the President's Distinguished Service Award from Humboldt State University for his inimitable leadership in conservation biology, an Outstanding Environmental Awareness Achievement Award for Dr. Reese's Planet from the National Society of the Daughters of the American Revolution, an Outstanding Achievement Award for writing, the Insatiable Bark Beetle from California Lutheran University, and an Outstanding Achievement Award for writing Shepherding the Sea, the Race to Save Our Oceans from Muse School in California. But more importantly, what I know from Dr. Reese is that he loves the earth, he loves nature, and he has done work from being in the tallest trees on the earth
Wow.
to being under the ocean. So, and what connects the two of them are the honeybee. So he's in fact going to be doing a workshop this coming Sunday, or a conversation this coming Sunday on trees, bees, and seas.
Wow. Hey, man, thank you for coming. Because I'm a nature fanatic.
Excellent.
I am a nature fanatic. How you doing today?
I am great.
Tell us, how did you become a mad scientist like this?
Well, I'll tell you what. I was blessed because my daddy and my mom indulged me. And my dad was my best friend. And as a young person, he loved trees, so he introduced me to trees as a kid, and he indulged me, and so I wanted to know how things worked. And so I went to college for a long time to figure out how things worked, or I thought I did, or I thought I'd go to college to figure things out. But I was blessed because I've lived all around our planet, and I've been able to immerse myself in nature and observe how she works and how everything works together. And I
love the fact that you gave her a female attribute. I mean, because I believe that. I do. I really believe that. And that's what I mean, the power of females and power of the woman's, the spirit of the woman. So that's another step out there. But tell me, what is, let's talk about the Carolyn said that there was a connection, more of a symbiotic relationship between the ocean and the depth of the ocean and the tallest of the tree. Yeah. What is that we are not getting, the average citizen? What is it that we just are not getting with this whole planetary and the interaction and the, I know I'm pontificating because I'm excited you're here.
Yeah. Well, I think, we're all blessed. First of all, we're all one. We live on this great blue orb, and we have everything. We have air. We don't think twice. We breathe. But the air now is filled with pollutants. Yes. We all drink water, Prince or Pauper. We need water, and we all eat food. And Earth is the Garden of Eden because we grow everything. She's bountiful, and all the medicines, by the way, everything can be found in her garden, whether it's the deep corals, whether it's the shallow corals, whether it's our Pacific Northwest rainforest, whether it's the Brazilian rainforest or the Indonesian rainforest. We have everything. I think we kind of got spoiled somewhere along the line. I think this is my gut feel, that when our nation went through the Great Depression, of course I wasn't here, I'm just looking back.
That's right, I'll tell you about that.
But we became thrifty, right? We didn't waste. Here's the thing, just like digression. Nature is the most perfect system that there is because there's no waste, there's no unemployment, everyone has a job, and everybody eats, right? It's unacceptable to have unemployment. Because we are all born with a purpose. With children, the $64,000 question is how to tweak and make them have the epiphany, or help them have the epiphany of what it is they came here to do. So we talk about find your passion and then follow your passion, and that falls well your life.
Well, the challenge with that, because when you take a child, and we're talking about the children now, which is the most important resource we have as human beings, is our offspring. And being a parent, I know that, and see, one of the things that I look at, how we have shift the children out of their natural order. When a mother have a child, regardless of what time of day the baby is born, generally a kid will wake up between 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning crying because that child needs feeding.
Right.
That is not man's watch. That is not man's clock. That is every child. It doesn't matter male or female. That child wake up because they're on their own rhythm.
Right.
So once the child get a little bit older, then we slap that 9 to 5 on him or her and then we put that 30 days on that child where all bills have to be paid on the first, and you got to be able to move and everything you got to do between 9 and 5. Then how do we get the children back into a natural rhythm with that kind of power that we're fighting against?
Yeah, well, we got to get them back into nature. I mean, kids intuitively know whether they're, and one great way, by the way, to get them back into nature is no matter where you live, you can put a couple pots on your balcony if you don't have a backyard, and you can grow food, right? They connect, and then all of a sudden you're growing food, and then it's not too difficult to say, well, look at that bee. See what the bee is doing? Well, the bee is helping the plant to make its food. And then 30 days later, there's food. So quite quickly, a child can see that, ooh, this is good, and ooh, tastes good. And we don't have to use these chemicals,
Right.
So, it's like going back to nature. And what I was saying earlier is that in a very short space of time, 80 years or so, our nation has gone from being thrifty to being extraordinarily wasteful. Right? We're wasteful.
Yeah, we're very wasteful.
Each year in America alone, we throw away 242 million tons of trash. If you break that down into an animal in terms of these are big numbers, but the biggest animal is the blue whale. Yeah, about 200 some odd 10 tons of an animal. That's 6,700 blue whales a day we're throwing away in America. And it's not that we're throwing it away, we're putting it in the earth. And the earth, the most valuable resource of the soil, because on a triangle of the decomposers, or the producers' plants are up here, the consumers, that's us, we eat and consume other things. But on the bottom, it's the decomposers, it's the soil. And the soil is what grows and sustains us in the Garden of Eden, yeah? And so we're putting all this trash in, and a lot of it is very poisonous. And then it trickles down into the water. Fresh water is the lifeblood of our planet. If there's no other reason why fracking is absolutely evil, it's because it's poisoning the lifeblood of our planet, fresh water.
So they're fracking the hell out of us.
Oh, they are. What the frack, baby.
They're fracking the hell out of us.
And on top of all that, we're entering a climate system that no one on our planet alive has ever seen. We know that we're going to have more intense heat waves. We know last week in Houston, in 4 hours, 11 inches of rain fell.
4 hours.
And 2 days before that, some 400 homes were swept away in Texas and Oklahoma from intense rainfalls. So we know that the climate is we're going to have more intense flooding. We know we're going to have heat waves. We know we're going to have droughts. In California, we're in the worst drought in over 1,000 years. Therefore, fresh water, the lifeblood of the earth, is priceless. And we need to take care of it.
What is the possibility, I may butcher this word, desalination? What is the possibilities there?
Well,
or is there a backdrop?
We can desalinate. Desalinate is a very energy-rich process, which we could sidestep with using the sun. But the trick is that when we extract the salt, the sodium chloride, it has to go back into the ocean. So carefully, Fallswell, it has to bleed down a pipe 100 or 150 miles into the ocean. Otherwise, if we put too much salt back in, we will kill the water. And already on our planet, you see, we have over 550 dead zones. These are massive zones in the ocean that are missing oxygen, and they're actually dead.
There's no life in it.
There's no life.
Now, do you think, I was reading something that this last nuclear explosion in Japan. Look at his face. And I had some friends that knew. I'm associated with some friends that sailed from Japan to Hawaii.
Yeah.
And they talked about they hit an area that was the most frightening thing that they had ever seen, where they absolutely saw nothing flying over it, no seabirds or nothing beneath the ocean. And that is a sign of what?
Well, Larry, it's a sign. Look, all these are signs. The recently in America last year, we lost a quarter of a trillion honeybees. 250 billion bees died. 40% of the bees that give us our daily food. It's a big deal. They're showing us, the bees, that the poisons that we're putting on. We put on insecticides, pesticides alone, 5 billion pounds globally into the biosphere. And we've got to dial that back, because if the bees die, we die. And so when you go into the oceans and you see 6 times more plastic than plankton. Now, the plankton is the base of the food chain. But a logical question is, look, I live in the Midwest. I never go to the oceans. I don't eat fish. Whoop-de-doo. Well, I'll tell you this. 3 out of every 4 breaths of air, irrespective of where you live on our planet, come from the ocean. Yeah. We all have a stake in this.
Wait a minute. Say that again.
3 out of every 4 breaths that we involuntarily breathe come from the ocean. And this is how bad it is, because I will pull no punches, because I do believe fervently for every problem there are at least 3 solutions. But step 1 is to identify the problem and put your hand up and say help, right? Yeah. As a recovering addict, that's the first thing I learned, and I'm sure many people out there can understand that. So we're missing 40% of the phytoplankton, the plants in the ocean that give us our oxygen. We're missing that. And we're missing it because our planet has warmed up so much, and the oceans that cover the 70% of the face of the globe have been absorbing this heat, right? And now the heat is starting to rise. And when it rises, it's altering the ocean currents. And when the ocean currents are altered, you see, they're not rising up. The fancy term is upwelling. And when they rise, you see, they carry nutrients that feed the phytoplankton their nutrients so they can grow. And we're missing 40% of the phytoplankton. And we know why. So again, step 1, we've identified the problem. Step 2, it's to get away from these fossil fuels.
Well, here again, when I said that I wasn't going to talk about politics, so now we got to throw some politics
get in there, baby.
So what is the politics of this? We know big oil, and then we have the deniers of climate change or global warming.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you this. Last week, the International Monetary Fund released a study that showed that coal, oil, gas, and fracking globally receive $5.6 trillion in subsidies. Subsidies. If these people are so mighty, hello, Cokes, if you're so mighty, why do you need $5.6 trillion? And let's take it away. Take that $5.6 trillion away. All of a sudden, the cost of these energies are furiously high. And the alternative energies, solar, wind, waves, steam, geothermal, aren't that expensive. And they're new industries. They're new industries. This is for tomorrow. We here in California 3 weeks ago opened up the first 500 megawatt solar plant in America, in California, in San Luis Obispo County, that took 160,000 homes off the grid. 9 million solar panels over a 9.5 square mile area, and 160,000 homeowners don't have to use coal. You know how many jobs that is. And look, kudos. First Solar of Phoenix went to the open market and they raised $2.4 billion. They didn't get any subsidies. They raised $2.4 billion. They did the deal with Pacific Gas and Electric in the Bay Area, San Francisco, and it's a done deal.
So this is about the will of the people holding the politicians' feet to the fire.
That is,
baby. Consciousness first, and then the will, because they have to understand there's a problem, and then, as he said, ask for help. Because until you know there's a problem and know you have to take action, and that you can participate consciously and assertively, then you can make all the difference in the world.
Yeah, and a friend of mine told me to bring this up, and I know it's gonna make you probably know about it, so you're probably gonna pull your hair out. But I think it was in Pasadena a couple of days ago when this school group or whatever was walking on a path, and a group of honeybees had made a nest nearby, and so the honeybees warned them. Yeah. And they didn't heed the warning, so I guess a couple of people got stung. And they came back, and instead of moving the bees, they destroyed them. They destroyed them with a foam kind of gas thing. And this is the type of thing that has happened, because if the people was aware, they would have not let them destroy that. And I know that seemed like one small
that's a
thing.
good point. Yeah.
But if the people was aware of this symbiotic relationship that we have with the bees and the insects and all of that, and I think they will stop a lot of this.
Absolutely. And people are more and more today where the children aren't going to, they're not having access to go to camps. They're not being with nature, so they're afraid of her. And there's a good reason why they're afraid, because Mother Nature is wild. She's unpredictable.
Yes.
That's
She
the
demands
way she
respect.
is. Absolutely. And so kids aren't having that chance to interface, and that's a big deal. But there are many more school programs where they have gardens, and they're getting kids getting their hands dirty and working with plants and seeing that they need bees and seeing that the bees are helping to give food. And I encourage everybody throughout our nation and elsewhere to plant a fruit tree.
Something that I'm hearing, sometimes we learn to listen with a third eye, look with a third eye and listen with a third ear. So what I'm saying to you, the man has actually created the earth.
Yeah.
When you were talking about the process of the earth breaking down, and the, what do you call it when it's breaking down? Decomposing process. And so that's more or less the earth is eating it.
Yeah.
And so now man has created something that the earth does not want to eat.
Yeah.
And so how do we deal with something that the earth itself does not want to eat? And I think, as I'm understanding, I'm listening with a third ear.
Yeah.
So before this modern industrial era, that there was not a civilization that created anything that Mother Nature didn't want to eat.
Right. Well, again, it's the onus does fall onto the children, but the children are very intelligent and are I believe they're all over it. But let's dial back. These problems, sadly but true, are fossil fuel related. These are plastic problems. Plastic comes from fossil fuels. 3.5 million barrels of oil every day go to make plastics. The oceans are a mass of plastics. And the fish are eating, there's so much plastic, fish are eating. If you eat fish, ladies and gentlemen, you're eating plastic.
Ducks and fowl and field.
Absolutely. And the plastics in the ocean are bad, but it's worse. They break down into small little pieces of confetti, and they act like a sponge. When we look at those little pieces of plastic that look like confetti, they are laced with some of the most awful toxins we've ever created. PCBs, DDT, methyl mercury, biphenol A.
I didn't know DDT. I thought DDT was off the market.
DDT is used for predominantly to fight malaria, and malaria is on the rise. PCBs were taken off the market in the late 70s, but the oceans are just rife with it. So the first thing, step one, we've identified the problem. The second thing, we've got to get a handle on curbing the pollutants. So heretofore, that's it. And then falls well over time.
What would be some? I'm just throwing some ideas, some thought processes out there. I don't have it. Doctor, I'm so glad you're on this show. I love your passion. Man, this is great. We got to do this again. I can tell you that right now.
We can do the dance.
But, I'm looking at there's some kind of rhythm with nature that we can do as a natural, let's not say pesticides, but
sure
there are different type of.
Absolutely.
What is that process? I know that they can take, let's say there's a beetle that eats the corn.
Yeah.
But then they can get a predator beetle that eats that beetle without using so much.
Yeah, we call it integrated pest management, and there are a lot of natural insecticides. What comes to mind is there's an Indian tree from the subcontinent of India, the neem tree, Neem, and it is just one of these super plants that is used for so many things, including as a natural insecticide. And it knocks down hundreds of different insects, and it keeps the plants healthy, and it's bee friendly, it's bat friendly, it's bird friendly, it's small rodent friendly. And that's just one example. So it is there. The realities are very difficult. The realities are this, that DC is run by special interest groups that represent multi-billion-dollar corporations that are heartless. Anybody who makes chemicals to kill Mother Earth on a daily basis is evil. And there's a number of industries that are highly evil.
I agree with that evilness. I most definitely do.
And we can't. We've reached the tipping point where we can no longer do this with impunity, because we are leaving the Garden of Eden sullied, and our children are having less and less of a chance for a good life. Every parent wishes that their child has at least as equal life, if not better, than they had.
Let me ask you a question, because I think what happens is when the average person does not see how it affects them, this will become a lazy, selfish society.
Yeah.
If it doesn't bother me and my family, I'm fine with it. So when I look at how now you have more women that can't carry a child full terms.
Right.
You having more children that are born with autism.
Yeah.
And with all of these different mental diseases and challenges and stuff. Do you think that this plays a part in that?
Enormous. Enormous. If we continue to look, we're all polluted in terms of, you take a couple strands of your hair, my colleagues will do the analysis. We're all carrying pollution. It's just a matter of how polluted we are. And we've got an autoimmune system that's hardened off mostly to this toxicity. Children, until you're 18, 20, your autoimmune system is still trying to cope with the toxicity that's in the air, in the soil, in our food, in our water. And it's horrid.
Have any of the diseases that is attributed? I mean, that these children are.
Well, autism is they know that women can't get pregnant. That if you're within 5 miles or so of any major freeway in America, your chances of getting pregnant are greatly reduced. The pollution toxicity is there.
Okay, now make that clear to the listener that if you're living so close to a freeway, what is the toxicities that is poisonous that's near the freeway?
Well, it's all the additives that are in the fuels that are in our fossil fuel fired cars. And you know, the distressing thing here is, look, people do two things, and we only do two things, but we do it very well. We're problem solvers, and we're tool makers. We make things with our hands. Yes. That's what we do. Now, we know that these fossil fuels are toxic. They're also getting $5.6 trillion each year to continue with their toxicity. Take the $5.6 trillion away, and let's get stuck in to mimicking nature, where there's no waste, where there's no unemployment, where everybody eats and everybody has a job. In fact, in science, we now have an entire new division called biomimicry, which values nature as a whole, sees that she has all the answers, and we use the inspiration to solve the problem to create the product. There are hundreds of examples. Velcro is the first example. Velcro is a wonderful story. Right. A Swiss doctor in the 40s came back from walking his dog, and they were covered in burrs, cockle burrs. Being a good doctor, and medical doctors are just scientists for people, not nature, but they work with nature. He pulled out his microscope and dialed down, and he saw that the seed had all these little hooks, and he thought, God, I wonder what we could do with this. And he came up with Velcro. Now, kids, I hope you're listening to this, because he only heard the word no 10 million times, but no means go away and regroup. And he persevered. And in the 60s, they used Velcro in heart surgery in Europe. And then Neil Armstrong peeled off his glove after walking on the moon, and everybody said, oh, man, what is that cool thing that went? And it's Velcro, and Velcro was born. And we have hundreds, nearing 1,000 different examples of products today on our markets that were inspired by nature. And again, it's the caveat that we live on the Garden of Eden. If we take care of our garden, we have all the medicines. We have all the inspiration to live truly as one family on our planet. And you know, part of being one family is to agree to disagree. That's okay. It's okay to agree to disagree. But at the end of the day, we all live on one planet.
Tell us a little bit about some of your diving experiences.
Well, the Great Barrier Reef in Australia is my
look at that
favorite
smile
place.
that comes on your face.
It's
when
my
you say
favorite place because
I'm an amateur diver. I went through. I didn't get completely certified yet, but I dove a few times.
It's okay, and snorkeling's good too.
Yeah.
It's just the colors and the diversity of life. I think the greatest thing is we all need to be humbled. We all need to understand that we have this ability to be arrogant, and this terrible word hubris, that we're so mighty and great and entitled to all this. But when you go in nature, you realize how small you are and how you have to maintain your wits and be humble, and also be able to be MacGyver-esque in, if something happens, to know what to do. And the key to that really is a positive mental attitude. If you believe you can, you can. And if you have a plan, you win.
You just made me think of something. I think that you have to correct me if I'm wrong if I named it. There's this little killer shrimp that has the fastest reflex in nature, and you can't see it with the plain sight. Yeah. So I had to put it on a microscope, and he has the fastest reflex in nature. And when he hits his prey, it's almost like a .22 pistol. Wow! And what they did was they looked at his claw, the one that actually come into contact with the shell of the shellfish, and it doesn't crack. Wow! And the scientist was trying to figure out how can this little shrimp have such a powerful punch, but it does itself no harm. So now they look at it under a microscope and seeing how nature has designed it to absorb the impact. Yeah. And now they want to use that for helmets.
Well, that's biomimicry. That is exactly one of thousands of examples of being intrigued with something and then thinking, gosh, I wonder where we could use that. And the other thing that is also humbling is everything in nature has eked out an existence. Not dissimilarly to you and I, everybody's got somebody else breathing down their neck. And so they've learned to adapt to that and make a living. And that's what hurts me the most, to see the destruction. What comes to mind is in our oceans, the doctors of the sea, sharks. Sharks are so very important. There's over 400 species of sharks. Not all of them are carnivorous, but many are. And what they do is they keep their populations of prey fit by culling, which is killing the old, the weak, and the sick. And that prevents diseases from becoming epidemics, going global, you see. And in the last 15 years, our species has done something that is beyond shocking. Each year, since the year 2000, we have slaughtered 100 million sharks. In 15 years, we have removed 1.5 billion sharks. There's this delicacy in Japan, Asia, China, for shark fin soup. Yes, shark fin soup. And so if we dialed back 20 years ago, today 9 out of 10 sharks that were in the oceans are gone. And the oceans, if the corollary is, if you took 90% of the medical doctors out of America tomorrow or Australia tomorrow, our economies would grind to a halt and we would be in complete pandemonium.
Well, Carolyn, you haven't letting us men do all of this talking. I need to hear this from a woman's perspective.
I've been fascinated by the banter back and forth, and a couple of things that you said, Dr. Reese, that really touched me. And one is the whole situation of people not growing up touching the soil.
Good point.
And I think that's really a pivotal point, that most of our society, whether it was the U.S. or other countries, lived with the earth. Yeah. They grew up in the dirt, and they learned not to be wasteful. I know I lived in the city, but when I went to visit the country, you didn't throw anything away.
Yeah.
Or if you threw it away, it was through the pigs and the hogs. You created a hog slosh, and or you were milking the cows and whatever. Nothing was thrown away. Like they had the smallest garbage can, but had many people operating in place. Yeah. And the only thing they threw away were cans.
I was telling I was telling someone the other day. You know, we've been blessed to travel around the world, and I've traveled around the world, and it something dawned on me when I went through many countries, and most countries does not have a garbage dispenser in their kitchen. And when you look at how much food we throw away, and you look at the fact that we won't wash our cloth, so we need paper towel, throw away.
Right.
We don't want to wash plates, so we get paper plates, throw away. We don't want to wash our forks and spoons, we get plastic forks and spoons, throw away. We're living in this throwaway society. And
so let me go back to my
please,
point.
go right ahead.
Because the point is that the children learned at an early age how to be thrifty, how to be a part of Mother Nature, and how not to be wasteful. So the fact that most people now live in the cities and aren't on farms, and the farms that exist are now, large farms, that the work can go back into the schools to help them. Now, I know many schools are doing programs on how to garden, but I think that next step, and that's what you made me think about, is I've been a part of some of the schools where they're taking gardening classes and planting gardens right in their plots.
Nice.
But that next step of understanding the impact of gardens and working with hands and how that all used to be is what I think the children need to understand. And it's not so much going backwards as much as clarifying that when you lived on a farm, this is what life looked like.
Yeah.
And because I don't know if there's any correlation in city life. Because everything, I've met children and I've seen programs where they can't tell you where chicken comes from.
Yeah.
They just know it's cooked. But they have no sense
of the creature itself.
The creature, where it grew up, what it did, how it looks.
And that they have feelings.
It has feelings.
And that they have feelings. You know, to be a vegetarian is a great thing because every night I eat like a king and nobody got hurt.
But the thing that I've always, and one of the things that I wished I could do, and I've been passionate about this, driving around the United States and going around the country, you're seeing all of these abandoned communities and abandoned buildings. I'm talking in urban cities, not
Cleveland
in
and Detroit and elsewhere.
You could turn these abandoned buildings into gardens.
Yeah.
You could turn these buildings into gardens.
Which they have, Larry, in Cleveland and Detroit, because they were burnt out and there has been a revival and we need this.
You need this. And so let me ask you a question because I've always, when I look at, and I'm looking at the environment, like you were talking about the sharks, now moving to freshwater.
Yeah,
I've always been taught that the frog in the swamp is a very important animal in reading the environment of the ecosystem around the swamp because it breathes through its skin. Yeah. So now you're finding all these frogs in these wetlands and stuff with 9 legs, 12 eyeballs, and
both sexes.
Yeah, both sexes. Born with a pair of cowboy boots on and all of that kind of stuff. And is this frog now that I'm looking at, is this a sign that this ecosystem is off center? I mean, it is.
Yes, it is, and that's the waterborne toxicity. So the runoff that's coming from the land, that's often coming from the agricultural fields that are laced with chemicals and liquid fertilizers. It's a real problem because, again, we have this notion that we're fancy and everything has to be in a line and everything has got to be the same. In nature, nothing is the same and nothing's in a line. And so understanding to work with nature, not against nature. We have wonderful plants, Larry, nitrogen-fixing clover, for instance, that if you put on the field next to your cropping plants, actually takes nitrogen out of the air as a gas and puts it in the soil and enriches the soil. It's working with these systems.
It's like a natural fertilizer.
Absolutely. And so what we've discovered with the bees, you see, is the bees and people are very similar. That we like to dance and bees like to dance. We like to travel and bees like to travel. We like to sleep and bees like to sleep. We certainly like honey and bees definitely like honey.
Bees love honey.
And we like smorgasbords, lots of different kinds of foods, and bees like lots of different kinds of flowers. We're using the bees and we're putting them in fields of all the same kind of flower. So the bee, like people, they like to travel and they go, well, you know, these flowers have been nice, but let's see what's over there. And when they travel over there, they run into corn or soy, because corn and soy are the big crops throughout our nation. Yes. And those plants don't require the bees to pollinate, but the bees will land, take the nectar or the pollen. They turn the pollen into, they use the pollen for protein for their young, and it's laced with these poisons. So again, we're finding out these problems. So I don't want the listeners to think that Dr. Reese is full of all these problems without some solutions. So the movement afoot around the world, in parts of America too, are to take wildflowers and sprinkle these wildflowers liberally along the sides of roadways so that the bees have these natural smorgasbords to eat. So we have to take these initiatives to go back to nature and begin to mimic these patterns that are all around us. I have great optimism that we will see the light, falls well, and do the right
So
things.
the bees really are the heartbeat of our food chain.
40% of what's on your dinner plate every night is directly because of the bees. And in California, you see the concern with the real concern with the drought is that we're the leader in the State of the Union, and that 50% of everything that's on everybody's dinner plate in America, 330 million people, comes from California and our bees, right? So this is a real deal. This drought is a real deal.
But let me ask you a question. Now, because for the sake of time, what are we going to do about the ocean? Because we look at Santa Barbara and they just had all these oil spills. They have oil spill after oil spill after oil spill. And before that, some friends of mine have been diving around Santa Monica, Malibu for a few years now, and then they're finding some of the jellyfish that are born
the jellyfish
with
are exploded.
Exploded, and finding some of the starfish that are being born with one arm.
Starfish are melting. So there's a mass wasting. They're melting all along the West Coast, and the sea urchins are starting to melt. Number one, involving children. So 85% of the plastics that are 3.5 million pieces of plastic a day go in our oceans, and 85% of them come from the land. We got to cut this off. We got to involve every child in every school along every coast, river, and lake to get hands-on. We got to cut this plastic off, Larry.
I remember when they started having a problem with the styrofoam cups.
Right.
And with styrofoam. So at one point, they had started a pretty decent job at removing styrofoam cups. Have they moved back into
some areas they've moved back. And so wherever you go, whatever continent, wherever you are, every shoreline is covered in all this toxicity. So step one, we've got to stop adding more. And step two is a little more tricky, how we extract what's in there. But we got to get to step one before two, which is stop the plastic. Take the $5.6 trillion away from coal, oil, gas, and fracking now, baby.
Do it now. Oh my goodness, I love your energy, man. I love you.
If you want to, I'm the advertisement in the middle.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I want to let you all know that Dr. Reese is going to be doing a little workshop on Sunday at 2:30 at Agape International Spiritual Center. And if you want to see more of him and meet him in person, please join us.
Go see this guy because he's making me
Yes.
not want to go. I want to go hug a tree and kiss a bee.
Yeah, baby.
I want to hug a tree and kiss a bee today, man.
And the address
Yes.
is 5700 Buckingham Parkway in Culver City. So if you have any questions, please send me an email at globalworks@agapelive.com.
And, well, you know, and the thing about these toxicities that you're talking about,
Yep.
it's not so much as in the air. Now we're looking at our food, our actual food when we go in the grocery store.
Yeah.
And I tell you something, a good friend of mine, which is a medical doctor, down here is a general practitioner. And so she, with her challenges now, can't eat soy.
Yeah.
And because she's a doctor and a nutritionist,
Yeah.
she reads the back of everything.
Yes.
And she can't find anything that doesn't have soy in it.
Oh, I'll pass that one step further. If you look at a label and you can't even pronounce whatever the word is, please don't be eating it.
Yes.
And
It's
don't
not
be eating
potato
it on a
chips.
regular basis.
Yeah.
Potato chips shouldn't have anything in it.
Well,
that-
a little. You got to be able to pronounce it. If you
Yes.
can't pronounce it, don't do it.
Oh my goodness! I tell you, your parents. I know your father would be very proud of you.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Well, they're my guardian angels
Yes.
up there, so I'm
Yes.
blessed.
So what are you doing next?
I'm starting the Save Nature Now tour on Sunday at Agape.
Oh, before I forget,
and I'm going to Australia, baby.
You know, before I forget,
Yeah.
talk about the melting of the glaciers.
Well, the melting of the glaciers is extraordinary. It's happening faster than all our computer climate models had predicted, and the doubling time now is 10 years. It's very real. It isn't climate change. It isn't global warming. It is a climate crisis, and we all have a stake at this. And I think if we all understand that each of us have a helping hand, and we're required. We are all required to lend a helping hand here because it's our problem. And for every problem, there's 3 solutions.
Yes.
Let's get into it, baby.
Yes.
There's a call in. Oh, there's a call. Would you pick up?
Sure.
Hello, caller. Thanks for calling Larry Excelsior Show. How may we be able to serve you today?
Well, I just wanted to say that I think Dr. Reese is amazing. I love his energy. I love his passion.
Thank you.
Time. I think the biggest problem that we have is the bottom line,
Yeah.
which is the thing that advances everything that we should. So I agree with him on so many levels. He's a great guest.
Okay, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you so much. And thanks for calling and supporting the show because we want to bring the best to you. We're trying to educate the world here. So this is something that we can't fail at. We
No, we
must
can't.
win at
No,
this
we
one.
can't. No, we can't. Because we need our world, and our grandchildren need our world.
Yes, it's
And you know we have the power within us to understand that we all make mistakes. The troubles here are that people are knowingly making mistakes to make billions and billions more. And anybody who does that is wrong, right? So, but we've got it within us to correct this, and I'm working day and night to make sure this happens on my watch.
Well, thank you so much, caller,
Yes,
and we will talk to you later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye bye. This is great because you're not just talking about problems, but you're talking about solutions. And the fact of the matter is, we got to do this for our kids. And see, the thing about the average human being in America, we have been forced to think about the next 30 days, and and sometimes we're forced to think of over the next 2 or 3 years. We don't look 500 or 1,000 or 2,000 years down the road. And these big corporations, that's one thing they have on us. Whether they're doing it for the good or the bad, they're looking 500 or 1,000 years down the road, and we're looking at every 30 days.
They're not quite that far ahead, but I would say I make a little change. We're not doing it for the children. We're doing it with the children.
I like that.
Because they are capable right now of elevating what's being done right now. They can change. They can make a difference. and help the rest of the world.
We're at the end of this show. So what I like to do is give you words of wisdom to the listeners before we sign off. Give us words of wisdom.
The words of wisdom are that we all crave hope, and it's there, and it's in saving nature now.
Yes.
Carolyn,
I'm going to use some of your words, Dr. Reese. To protect nature, we must love it. To love it, we must understand it. To understand it, we must be taught. From understanding comes wonder.
I love that.
And I'm going to end. Let us all have a sense of wonder and be willing to make a difference.
You know, I appreciate that. It's hard to hard to beat that one. But I just look at it. We're traveling through our galaxy within our solar system, and we're traveling at a few thousand miles per hour as we rotate and orbit around the sun in this thing we call Earth spaceship. We're on this ride together. We do not want to lose this spaceship. We are here together. Anyway, let's take care of it and ourselves and for the generations to come. This is Larry Yates' Show. Remember, a nation can rise no higher than it elevates its woman. Thank you. See you next time.